Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're exploring something, well, something we all experience every day, but maybe don't fully appreciate.
Hmm.
Sunlight.
Oh, yeah.
And not just the, sunny day kind, but how it's deeply intertwined with our health.
Yeah.
We're diving into an interview with Carlos Stroker, an expert on this very topic,
Oh, interesting.
from the Spanish podcast Soy Como Como.
Okay.
It's fascinating stuff. You know how we think of food and water as like the essentials?
Yeah, for sure.
Carlos argues that sunlight is even more foundational for life itself. He even calls it the ultimate nutrient.
Wow, that's a bold statement. I like it.
Okay, so episode 72 of that podcast is where this interview lives, for those wanting to go to the source.
Gotcha.
But for us, the mission today is to unpack the most surprising insights from Carlos.
Right?
How sunlight's not just nice to have, but built into our very biology.
Yeah, I'm curious about that.
And he takes it way back, connecting sunlight to the origins of life on Earth. It's not just a poetic idea, but a chain reaction,
Right.
starting with photosynthesis in plants, all the way to the creation of DHA.
Photosynthesis. That's how plants convert light energy into chemical energy, right? So he's saying there's a connection between that process and DHA.
Wait, DHA, that's the omega-3 fatty acid, right? The one that's like the brain power fuel.
Exactly. Docosahexaenoic acid. DHA for short. Essential for brain development and function.
Yeah.
And Carlos traces a direct line from sunlight to plant life to the very molecules that make up our brains.
Whoa. So it's not just about vitamin D then.
Right.
Clearly there's more going on. It's like we evolved because of sunlight,
That makes sense.
and we're still wired to need it.
Right.
Which is why he dives into what sunlight actually is, because that's key to understanding its effects.
Oh, okay.
It's not just one thing, but an electromagnetic wave with different wavelengths. Think of it like a rainbow.
Okay, I can picture that. So you're saying each color represents a different, frequency of light?
Exactly.
Interesting.
And each frequency interacts with our bodies differently. Like the red and infrared wavelengths have been shown to increase cellular energy and even boost melatonin production.
Melatonin, the sleep hormone.
Yeah.
I've definitely heard that red light can help with that.
Yeah.
And Carlos is a big proponent of red light therapy, using specific devices at home to harness those benefits.
So like those red light panels some gyms have, I've seen those advertised for muscle recovery and stuff.
Exactly.
Okay.
There's a growing body of research suggesting potential therapeutic uses for those specific wavelengths. But here's the thing. When we're mainly indoors, we're missing out on this whole spectrum of light.
Right. We're under LEDs, screens, all very artificial. And now I'm thinking, if sunlight is this diverse language our bodies evolved with, what happens when we only get a limited vocabulary from artificial light?
That's a good question. It's like only hearing one note played over and over instead of a whole orchestra.
Exactly.
And this is where Carlos gets into blue light, which is abundant in those artificial sources.
Okay, blue light, everyone's talking about it being bad, especially at night.
Right.
But what makes it different from other types of light?
Well, blue light has a shorter wavelength, and it's very stimulating.
Okay.
While it's important during the day for alertness and focus, at night, it disrupts our natural melatonin production.
So that's why everyone says no screens before bed.
Yeah.
But I gotta admit, I'm guilty of scrolling late at night sometimes.
It's so easy to get caught up in that.
Yeah. Melatonin is the sleep hormone, right?
Exactly. And it's not just about feeling sleepy. Melatonin is involved in so many processes, like cellular repair and even immune function. So consistently disrupting it with blue light at night can have a cascade of negative effects.
Yeah, that is kind of scary. So
Yeah.
what's the solution? Just darkness all evening?
Well, Carlos emphasizes the importance of both sunrise and sunset exposure. Aim for at least 30 minutes of each, if you can.
Okay.
He says our bodies are designed to receive these signals like a natural reset button for our internal clock.
Right, our circadian rhythm. I've heard that term before. But what does that actually mean?
It's basically our internal 24-hour cycle that regulates everything from sleep to hormone production to body temperature.
Oh, wow.
And sunlight is one of the biggest cues that keeps it synchronized.
So it's not just about darkness at night, but also getting that full spectrum of light during the day. It's like We need the contrast to stay healthy.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah,
And it makes you think about how much our modern, always lit lifestyle might be messing with these ancient systems in our bodies.
totally.
Yeah.
So we're exposed to blue light at night, and then what, slather on sunscreen all day to block out the sun entirely?
That's where things get interesting, because Carlos challenges this idea that even all sun exposure is bad. In fact, he argues that blue light is potentially more harmful than UV light, especially the kind that's overrepresented in artificial sources.
Hold on. So the sun we're told to avoid is less of a problem than the lights we use every day.
Right.
That's a bit of a mind bender.
It is. And this is where he emphasizes the importance of a healthy diet, rich in antioxidants, to help our bodies tolerate sun exposure. Okay? He even says that blue light blocking glasses, while useful at night, might not be the solution during the day.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. We're diving into diet next, right?
Absolutely.
Because that's a big part of Carlos's work and how it relates to all this.
He talks about real food, the kind grown under the same sun we're meant to be exposed to, and how modern food, especially processed stuff, doesn't quite fit that definition. But we'll get into all that after a quick break.
All right, we'll be right back with more from the deep dive in Carlos Stroker's surprising insights on sunlight and health. All right, we're back. And before the break, we were getting into some pretty mind-blowing stuff about sunlight, blue light, and how our modern world might be throwing things out of whack.
Definitely a lot to think about.
But now, I'm curious about the diet connection.
Right.
What does Carlos Stroker have to say about that?
Well, it all comes back to that idea of real food, he emphasizes. Foods that are grown under the same sun we are,
Gotcha.
that haven't been overly processed or modified.
Like Whole Foods?
Exactly.
Okay.
He believes those foods are key to building up our natural resilience, including how well we handle sun exposure.
So it's not just slapping on sunscreen. It's about what's going on inside our bodies, too.
Exactly.
That's it.
Makes sense. It's like we're treating the symptom, not the root cause.
Right.
And Carlos points out that many sunscreens actually block beneficial rays while still letting in harmful blue light.
Really?
Kind of ironic, right? We're so focused on avoiding one type of light that we're missing out on the good stuff.
It is ironic. Like, all those years I spent slathering on sunscreen as a kid.
Right.
Worried about sunburn. Maybe I should have been more worried about the hours I spent in front of the TV after school.
It's all about finding that balance,
Yeah.
and understanding that our bodies are complex systems, not just isolated parts. So what we eat plays a huge role in how well those systems function,
Right.
including how they respond to sunlight.
Okay, so what does Carlos consider real food?
Sure.
Can you give us some examples?
Well, he's a huge proponent of seafood, especially fatty fish like salmon.
Salmon.
They're packed with omega-3 fatty acids, which you talked about earlier,
Yeah.
but also a powerful antioxidant called astaxanthin. Studies have shown that astaxanthin can actually help protect our skin from sun damage.
So, eating salmon can make you more sun resistant. That's way cooler than any SPF lotion I've ever used.
I know, right?
What else is on the menu?
Well, lots of fresh fruits and vegetables, of course.
Right.
They're loaded with vitamins, minerals, and a rainbow of antioxidants. He believes in eating seasonally and locally whenever possible.
Okay.
The idea being that those foods are more aligned with our natural environment and haven't been depleted of nutrients through long-distance transport.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And what about his stance on genetically modified foods? You mentioned they don't quite fit his definition of real food.
Right. He's cautious about GMOs, arguing that they've been altered in ways that nature didn't intend. He emphasizes the importance of eating foods that have evolved naturally under the sun, as our bodies have.
It's like sticking to the ingredients list that humans have thrived on for millennia rather than the newest lab-created version.
Exactly.
Makes sense from an evolutionary perspective.
Yeah.
But honestly, it's a lot to think about.
It is. It is. And it's not about being perfect or following a rigid set of rules.
Okay.
Carlos himself emphasizes that it's a journey of learning and making gradual changes. Small steps can have a big impact over time.
Okay, good to know. So we've covered sunlight exposure, we've covered diet, but Carlos also talks about water, right?
He does.
And not just drinking enough, but the quality of the water.
Exactly. He's a big advocate for clean drinking water and prefers reverse osmosis filters to remove contaminants. He's concerned about things like heavy metals, pesticides, even pharmaceutical residues that can end up in our tap water.
Ugh, that is unsettling. I guess I take clean water for granted. But doesn't reverse osmosis also strip out minerals? I've heard that's a downside.
It does remove some minerals, but Carlos believes we can easily get those from a healthy diet, or by supplementing with mineral drops if needed. He feels the benefit of removing those contaminants far outweighs that potential loss.
Makes sense. And he even mentioned something about deuterium in water.
Oh, yeah.
That was a new one for me.
Deuterium is a heavier isotope of hydrogen, naturally occurring, but some research suggests that high levels in our bodies might not be ideal. Carlos suggests looking into deuterium-depleted water, though it can be more expensive.
Right.
It's a whole other rabbit hole to go down.
We might need a separate deep dive just for that one. But it's fascinating how he connects all these dots. Sunlight, what we eat, even the water we drink. It's like a holistic web of health, not just isolated factors.
Exactly. And it all comes back to that connection to nature, to those natural rhythms we evolved with. He even talks about how viewing the sunrise and sunset whenever possible can help reset our internal clock. Okay.
It's like hitting the refresh button on our circadian rhythm.
Which most of us probably need, considering how much time we spend under artificial light these days.
Absolutely.
But even just knowing this stuff, being aware of it, is a step in the right direction, right?
Absolutely. Awareness is key.
Yeah.
From there, you can experiment, make small changes, and see what works for you. Even just a few minutes of morning sunlight can make a difference. Maybe swap out some screen time for a walk in nature.
Oh, yeah.
Pay attention to how you feel, how your energy levels shift throughout the day.
It's about tuning into those subtle cues, rather than just powering through on autopilot.
Exactly.
I like that. And I love how Carlos doesn't present it as this rigid dogma,
Yeah.
but an ongoing exploration.
That's what makes his work so engaging. He's encouraging us to think critically, to question assumptions, and to be active participants in our own health journey.
Well said. And for our listeners who are feeling inspired, we'll be sure to link to Carlos Stroker's work in the show notes. He has an online community now, right? He does, which is a fantastic resource for anyone who wants to dive deeper into these topics.
Awesome.
It's a space to share experiences, learn from each other, and really put these ideas into practice.
Sounds like a great place to connect with like-minded people.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up, I'm curious to get your take on one thing that really struck me during this interview. Throughout this whole interview, what really stuck with me was how Carlos emphasized how sunlight played a crucial role in the development of our brains.
Yeah.
It's something I hadn't really considered before.
It is fascinating, right? He traces it all the way back to the very beginnings of life on Earth. Remember how we talked about photosynthesis?
Uh-huh.
Well, that process, powered by sunlight, eventually led to the creation of DHA, which is essential for brain development.
Right.
DHA?
Docosahexaenoic acid.
Yes.
It's like the superstar of omega-3 fatty acids.
Exactly. And it's a direct link from sunlight to the very building blocks of our brains.
Wow.
It really underscores how deeply intertwined we are with the natural world. It's like sunlight isn't just something we enjoy.
Yeah.
It's woven into the fabric of who we are on a cellular level. It makes you wonder if some of the cognitive challenges we face today, things like ADHD or even dementia, could be linked to our lack of sunlight exposure.
That's a really interesting point. It's a question researchers are exploring.
Yeah.
And there's growing evidence suggesting that sunlight does play a vital role in cognitive function, mood regulation, and even protecting against neurodegenerative diseases.
That's incredible. It's like we've been undervaluing this fundamental aspect of our existence for far too long.
It seems that way.
Yeah.
And Carlos's work is a powerful reminder to reconnect with that primal source of energy and life. He even points out that different frequencies of light dominate at different times of day,
Oh, right.
influencing our energy levels,
Yeah.
focus, and even how we process food.
Right. He was talking about how the light at sunrise is different from the light at midday, which is different from sunset. It's like the sun is sending us different signals throughout the day,
Exactly.
guiding our internal clock. Precisely. And when we disrupt those signals by spending most of our time indoors under artificial light, it's no wonder our bodies get confused.
Makes sense.
It's like trying to read a book in a dimly lit room. You're straining to see, you get tired easily, and you might miss some of the details.
For sure.
And that's what can happen to our bodies when we don't get enough of the right kind of light.
Oh, wow.
It can impact our sleep, our mood, our energy levels, even our digestion.
So what can we do about it? I mean, most of us can't exactly ditch our jobs and live in the wilderness.
Of course not. But even small changes can make a difference.
Right.
Try incorporating more natural light into your daily routine.
Okay.
Maybe take your morning coffee outside, go for a walk during your lunch break,
Yeah.
or even just sit by a window and soak up some sunshine. And be mindful of your evening routine. Dim the lights, put away the screens, and maybe light some candles instead. It's about creating a more natural transition into sleep.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. And remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about being aware and making gradual changes that you can sustain over time. Start with small steps, experiment, and see what works for you.
That's great advice. And it's inspiring to hear Carlos's story. He's a great example of someone who's taken his health into his own hands
Absolutely.
and discovered the power of simple, natural solutions.
He really is. And he's not just talking about it, he's living it. He's constantly experimenting, learning, and sharing his insights with others. His online community is a testament to that.
That's awesome. It's fantastic that he's created a space for people to connect, support each other, and learn from his experiences. And speaking of learning, I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of this topic.
I agree.
There's so much more to explore.
There is. But hopefully this deep dive has sparked some curiosity
For sure.
and given you some practical tools to start optimizing your relationship with sunlight.
I know it has for me. I'm already thinking about how I can get more morning sun and create a more calming evening routine.
That's great to hear. Remember, it's a journey, not a destination. Keep exploring, keep experimenting, and keep listening to your body.
Well said. And for our listeners, if you're intrigued by Carlos Stroker's work, we'll be sure to include a link to his website and online community in the show notes. Go check it out, and until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep diving deeper.
And may the sun be with you.